Hello. Today, a haunting story or two with Winchester premier apparition trail guide. Mr. J.P. Murphy's here, y'all.
Hello. Good to be here.
We're lucky to have you in town and giving lots of tours. I saw you the other day. You had a large group. Everybody looked invested in the story. I was closing up shop. Hit the door a little hard. We had a little bump. Everybody kind of jumped. Must have been really into the story.
It kind of goes with the territory.
Yeah.
They're expecting, they like things like that.
Sure.
Last year where that apple is out in front of Kimberly's.
Right.
We were walking past that, and apparently nobody realized that there was a guy inside there, like, repairing the inside of it. It was dark out. We were waiting across Braddock Street, and suddenly his head pops up and says, "How y'all doing tonight?" And I think at least three of the women were screaming bloody murder. Because when you're on a ghost tour, you're kind of like conditioned for that.
Right.
You're waiting for something like that to happen. And
You're hoping to.
I thought that was great, actually.
So JP is an entrepreneur and local business owner in Winchester at Old Town, as well as a tour guide for the spirits and the history of Old Town Winchester, which we look to learn a lot about that today. We're neighbors. We operate a restaurant across from Murphy Beverage, and that's where we interacted. And
we don't own the beverage company anymore. We sold it. We saw that in mid-April.
Nice.
But we still own the building.
All right. Well, that's great.
That's one of the reasons I'm here.
Yeah, you're definitely tied to the roots of Winchester.
Mm-hmm.
So how did this all start? How long have you been doing this? And I guess this is the season for you. Yeah,
it started out completely by accident. Charlie and I had heard, my wife, we had heard that somebody was doing a ghost tour in Winchester. And it was a lady named Jean Woolsey. We actually saw her walking up Piccadilly Street one afternoon as we used to live up by the cemetery. And we saw her at a group of like 20 people she was leading up there. So Charlie said, "Go talk to her, and maybe we could do something in conjunction with the two businesses, spirits and spirits."
Genius.
So I made an appointment to speak to her, and we talked for about a half an hour, and she said, "I like your style. What, you want to come work for me?" You seem to know the history real good, and you've got pretty good presence. So I started going on tours with her, mainly like taking pictures and stuff, and like that one.
Yeah.
And just learning the history. And she used to have all the equipment too.
So you've always dressed like this?
I try to. Well, this.
Well, yeah, that would make sense. She would say, "Hey, you got a spooky vibe. I got a spooky thing."
She would wear this really cool, like she called it a 19th century widow's dress. It was solid black with a hat and everything. It goes with the territory. It just adds to the cachet, I don't know, whatever the word is. I've always wondered about these people who do ghost tours who wear polo shirts or T-shirts or things like that. Yeah.
I've never been on a ghost tour before, and I've seen them on TV, but to see one right here across from where we're working all the time, I came across a photo that someone showed me that you just showed me today of the restaurant that we operate, Ellie's Irish Pub, on our cocktail side or lounge side.
Mm-hmm.
And the boots are perfectly visible. You said that there was some technology used in capturing the image.
Mm-hmm. A REM pod, it's called.
REM pod.
It's kind of like, I call it the Claymore mine for ghosts. Basically, it gives off a weak electromagnetic field about a yard in diameter using a 9-volt battery.
Okay.
And apparently it did something, because I think that's the reason that appeared. I don't know what that is.
Right.
But I actually have an email from the Canon Corporation, because I sent it to them, and the first thing the guy said was, "Well, thank you for submitting this picture, but I'm not sure what's going on here." That to me tells me that he doesn't know either. You figure an expert in photography could look at a picture and tell you if it's fake or not.
Right.
Because I had a number of people tell me that thing's fake. I said, "Well, you prove it. And if you prove it's fake, I'll give you $100. No one's ever taken me up on it. And a professional photographer, he's the head photographer for the Winchester store, took a tour with us one night. He was going to do an article on the tour, and he took one look at that and said, "That's real. I know a fake picture when I see one. That was real." He was so confident in it, he put it in his article.
Right.
And he actually got a picture himself down at Cork Street.
Now, when you first look at it, it looks like, because right now in fashion culture, women wear boots that look similar to that. They're very, you can tell it's real leather and so on, and the color. But also, after I was staring at it for a little bit, they look a little larger in size. Perhaps it's some sort of fashion from the period that this memory or
I don't know
spirit or whatever allegedly.
See, I have them on my laptop, and I can make them like this big. And you can really see, you can see the stitching in them.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I don't know.
That's wild.
But I took costume history in college, but I've never been able to play. I've never been able to place them. I thought for a while it was the woman that lives upstairs from you guys.
Right. And what is her name?
That's just it. Nobody knew her name.
Okay.
Nobody knows her name. I think they have a nickname for it. They had when it was Brewbaker's. What was it? It'll come to me.
Okay.
Like the lights would flicker, or the glasses would start rattling. Oh, there she goes again.
So, like, there's a lot of history here, but with conflict and war and these buildings. This building is 100. The building next to us, where we operate a restaurant, is older.
Yeah, that was built around 1840, I think.
So lots of different energy.
My building they started building it during the Revolution.
The one across the street here?
No, my building,
okay.
where Murphy's is.
Sure.
Yeah, the foundation was dug by Hessian prisoners of war during the Revolution. And this has been adding on to it ever since then.
That is a really good way to get ghosts to the building.
Oh yeah.
when you have pain and suffering going into the foundation, boom, ghosts.
Well, there's a lot of pain and suffering in Winchester. This place was not a pleasant place to be during the Secession War. Not at all.
Absolutely. I think it was. You were telling me it was that this
traded hands
changed the most out of any spot.
72 times.
Yeah.
That's the figure that the historians agree on. Some say as few as 20. Some say more than 100. Sure. But it was that war was such a cluster.
It's fine. You can freely speak. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, given, the seriousness of the nature of that war, just an F-bomb on it, it's not going to hurt anybody, especially the ghosts involved. I think they can handle an F-bomb pretty good.
Well, not only the fighting, but you have to remember when the Yankees came to town, they were pretty rough on the people here. They didn't act like these were fellow Americans. No, they were insurrectionists and secessionists. So they were tough on them.
They're still doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, to a lesser extent, we get,
sure.
Especially during the leafing season, shout out Northern Virginia.
Well, yeah. There was one particular general. Have you ever been over to Kimberly's?
No.
I call it the Logan House because that's the name of the folks who owned it during the war.
Okay.
But if you look at the side of it, there's this placard that says Sheridan's headquarters, and Sheridan was actually the third Union general to occupy it. He'd use it as his headquarters. The first was Nathaniel Banks. The second was Robert Milroy. Of the three of them, Milroy was the absolute worst. In his own words, he says, "I intend to be Nero to these people, and I'm going to make their lives as hard as I can."
Are any of them ghosts here now, or no?
I hope.
Is it impossible?
Probably not. Oh. Sheridan died out west.
Yeah.
Milroy, oddly enough, even though he was an SOB to the people of Winchester, later on in life he became an Indian agent, was instrumental in helping an Indian chief keep his land. He kept ranchers from kicking this Indian off of his land, thinking, but he treated the people of Winchester like dirt.
Well, maybe he evolved.
Yeah, could be.
There's only two directions you can go in life.
Mm-hmm.
Reverse or forward.
Yeah.
We hope that dude went forward.
Sheridan was, Sheridan basically, he ran the Confederate Army out of the Shenandoah Valley. Because basically, Lincoln, after Gettysburg, Lee left Jubal Early here. You probably heard Jubal Early.
Yeah, Jubal Early. I hear it all the time.
Yeah, left him here to basically keep the Union Army busy. Because he was trying to defend Richmond. And Early was good at it. At one point, his men actually crossed the Potomac into Washington, D.C. and started shooting the place up, but ran out of ammunition and had to retreat. They didn't do much damage, except to the psyche of the North. It sent shockwaves throughout the North, and it's caused the value of the American dollar to drop to 35 cents.
Yeah,
just because of what he did. And after that, Lincoln decided, I got to do something about this, because Lincoln was looking at the prospect of losing the next election to one of his own generals, George McClellan. And McClellan had already stated that if he's elected president, the first thing he's going to do is call a ceasefire and talk to the Confederates, and if they don't want to come back into the Union, he was going to let them go. Basically, he was going to split the country up, and Lincoln was having none of that.
Sort of on subject, sort of off subject.
Yeah.
Isn't the Lincoln Room at the White House like the most haunted room in the White House? And like you sleep in there, you like see ghosts?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure Ford's Theater's probably haunted.
Yeah.
Where he was shot.
Again, you know, I'm sure before him there was even ghosts based off the foundation and the whole, you know, pain and suffering theory that I believe in.
So I think just geographically, this is a proxy situation for any sort of conflict, especially at that time between Pennsylvania, the Ohio Valley, and the South through to Lexington.
The interesting thing about Winchester is that most of the people who settled in Winchester came from Pennsylvania.
Sure,
They're
I can
like
tell.
Quakers
Yeah.
and Germans and Pennsylvania Dutch, and they didn't even, very few of them even owned slaves. They really didn't feel much kinship to the rich planters over the mountain. You still see that attitude. You see that attitude to this day.
Well, the German community was very independent to a point where newspapers were printed in German. You had certain pockets of population that would refuse to recognize the sovereignty of the new America, so on and so forth. But I'm just wondering how many ghosts came out of that. I have so many questions about ghosts and
yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's it being October and Halloween coming up, and you being in town coincidentally for these tours is we talk about the history, which kind of anguish and the pain and friction between humanity that could create what possibility of afterlife or people lost in some sort of purgatory state. What is happening here? What is the frequency, and why is it a draw? It seems to be a draw. I see a great many people here interested in what you have to say.
Well, that's because it's Halloween season. That's
Sure.
usually my busiest season. When 2021, I did like 23 tours during the course of October. So it's like 23 days out of 31.
Sure.
It's pretty good.
The veil is thinning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
It
they
happens
say,
twice a year, one Halloween and April 30th,
Yeah.
Walpurgisnacht.
What is that, sir? Sorry.
Walpurgisnacht.
I don't know what you're saying right
It's
now.
it's Witches' Night. It's a big thing in Europe. It's like Halloween at the end of April, and they celebrate it in Europe. It's 6
Seasonal
months.
change,
They're
yeah.
exactly 6 months apart.
Yep.
Halloween and Walpurgis are 6 months apart.
The two recognized solstices.
The only reason we never see any strangeness on Walpurgisnacht in Winchester because it's right in the middle of apple blossom, and there's enough strangeness going on already.
There's a lot of strange.
I'm sure.
That's strange.
I'm sure even the spirits and other things are just like, we're going to stay away from there. We don't want to get vomited on.
Well, maybe the assembly of people at that particular time is by design because it distracts from what could be.
But JT, just let you know though, so when we're talking about the veil is thinning, is like, so at that point, during these points in time, the veil that is between the living and the unliving world.
Well,
I'm not sure that's scientifically proven. I would say hypothetically. So
Well,
you're going to have to begin your sentences with hypothetically.
This is historically speaking, and this is a historical from a historical belief system, not mine per se.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that historically speaking, is that what we say is the veil is thinning, is that the veil or whatever boundary between the living and the non-living world becomes thinner at these points in time because of the transitional period. And so that's why kind of the pagans had incorporated the spirits and the ghosts and that type of thing into this time of year. It's called Samhain. It's spelled Samwain, and that's kind of like where the whole tradition of Halloween came from. And so, but just to speak to that, someone get spooked. I want to get spooky. I mean,
well, not only spirits can cross over, but other things too. I saw this thing many years ago as a documentary on Halloween where they were speaking to this Catholic bishop, and he said very frankly, things like demons and evil spirits exist, and one of the reasons that the church suppressed witchcraft and dabbling in witchcraft so much is because people were letting things in that were best left over there.
Yep. And that's
I've often advised people about not using Ouija boards or anything. You're trying to contact. It says it's your great grandma. Yeah, but how do you know it doesn't have like 8 legs and 6 eyes?
Right.
You don't
It's
know
like,
what you're talking to.
If you ain't gonna trust a Nigerian prince, why are you gonna trust the Ouija board, right?
Well, I call it the online dating
You know
of the
what I'm saying?
paranormal world.
Catfishing, man. You get if you got catfish paranormally, and then you bring in some demon into your house, man, that would be terrible. It's like, yo, I'm the ghost of Raquel Welch, and then it turns out it's the ghost of Sam Kinison.
Oh man,
It'd be terrible.
That actually would be kind of cool. I think.
It would be cool, except for like ow, ow, and like in the middle of the night, instead of like just a nice like, oh hello, how are you?
Where's the food?
I see you have a.
But there's.
Sorry.
Oh, that was this. I was going to show you. This was also taken in your dining room.
What's happening in this photograph?
Look between these two
That's
women
called
right
Humpty
there. This was actually taken by one of my guests.
Hold on. Oh,
that's
kind.
Yeah, that's a little on that. Maybe a little inconclusive. It's a little blurry, but you can make your own judgment on
this
that.
one is less convincing.
Yes.
Also, it is not a great fashion statement for Winchester. There you go.
Well, these women were all from out of town. In between the two women
Out of
on
Tanner.
the,
This was
left.
taken. When was this taken?
That was the same time. I'm sorry. That was 2019.
Okay, so in the middle here, or in the middle between the woman on her cell phone and the gentleman holding his cell phone, you have the ghost of somebody possibly maybe using a cell phone all the way. Is that? No.
It's all women. It's on the.
What's a
the
foot
far
like?
left.
So it's like a there's a
It's
hand,
like a
I
foot,
think it's
a
like
hand and a foot there.
hand and
yeah.
a foot, maybe some sort of glimmering object on her wrist. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
That's
Possibly.
wild.
I mean, did you see the legs on that other one? How the legs are almost like the with the
The other
boots.
one, yeah,
the legs are like
Yeah, it's boot scooting boogie.
they look like pipe cleaners almost.
Have you so do you have a lot of statistical information on your ghost tour that you're giving people?
Statistical?
Yeah, do you have like alleged sightings or like the folklore? Have you tried to categorize it at all?
Mostly what I do is when I'm on a small group, we actually go into places.
Okay.
Like I had a small, you probably didn't see it, so I had a small group last year, and we actually came into the dining room, and I let them stand right where that. Actually, what I like to do is take one of the little kids and make them stand right there where that thing appeared, and I take everybody a few feet away and show them the picture and say, well, that's right where he's standing. And usually, when you let the kids see what's there, where they were standing, they usually freak out pretty badly.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Or if we'll go into Village Square. There's like 6 entities in that place.
And so that's what I'm talking about. So the sightings and the alleged opinions and so on. If you interviewed people, do you?
If under the right circumstances, the employees will tell us stuff that happens.
Okay.
Over at Village Square, we walked into a tour one night, and like they said, like the day before, a door in one of the behind the bar opened up, and a few martini glasses came flying out of it. David Smith, the owner himself, was like looking at a bottle of wine one night and put it back behind the counter, like this far away from the edge of the counter. And 5 minutes later, while he's closing the registers, he hears this crash out in the bar, and then the bottle of wine smashed on the floor. They attribute that to they call her the kid.
The kid?
The kid. They think from the sound of her voice and the height it comes from, they estimate her to be like a little girl. And she actually talks. She's actually called employees by their first names, and apparently there's a Hispanic cleaning lady who goes in there like wee hours in the morning to clean the place, and one of the other owners said, "Don't you get bored? You don't even bring a radio with you." And she says, "Oh, I talked to the little girl."
We've had a couple of spooky incidences in this building specifically with the employees. I've had my own experience. I was upstairs and I was in the bathroom. I was using the bathroom, and I heard somebody walking about and it was very distinct footsteps. I mean, there's in a very large building that echoes such as this with the acoustics it has, and I heard it, and I came out thinking it was him. And I'm like, JT, and there's nobody, and there was actually nobody between here and then the other building, so there's no way that anybody got out and was able to scoot out and whatever. The second one we had two employees here, and they had closed down after one of our, I think it was like about 3 weeks ago, and both of them saw an apparition move in a shadow by the stairwell just outside of here. So you should check that out, man. Maybe, if you want to bring in the REM pods, if you got an EKG meter, we could bring that in.
EMF detectors.
EMF, that's what it meant.
What does EMF stand for?
Electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're actually good for locating. I used one of them to locate some outlets that somebody put drywall up over one time. They will detect electromagnetic force.
Okay.
And I've also read that they're actually more useful for, like, if they're going off, that means there's electrical energy in the air, and that could cause you to mistake something for a ghost or something.
Sure.
I use Jean left a pair of them here. Actually, she left them over there next door. Left 4 of them there when she moved out, went back to New York. Thought somebody had stolen them, and then about 6 months later, Laura comes in with this aluminum case. I think Jean left these. There they are. They're handy for giving. Let the little kids have them. It keeps them occupied. Because little kids, it's kind of on a historical tour. It's kind of hard to keep their attention. So I let them run around with these things, and they have fun with them. But we've had some odd things happen with them, like over by the Godfrey Miller Memorial. It always goes off.
Oh.
I suspect that, and I always tell the kids to go run around the cannon over there with them. It's reacting to the iron.
Sure.
So I've never put a whole lot of faith into these gadgets, to be perfectly honest, until this happened with the REM pod.
Right.
And we went back like 4 times trying to reproduce that shot. With the same camera, the same REM pod, right around the same time of night. It was like 8:05. No, it was like 9:10. We set the thing up, and I kept taking pictures. Nothing happened.
Right.
It was like a once in a lifetime thing. That was actually like September 5th, 2013. That was on the timestamp on the original picture.
Do you find yourself being like an investigator or just an entertainer?
A storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have asked me questions about paranormal investigation. I don't really know that much
Supernatural
about it.
Walter Cronkite.
All right. So now I'm starting to dig it.
I'm in the history.
Okay, cool.
And
That's what I thought.
Ghosts happen to run. It runs concurrently.
Okay,
and
yeah.
like I said, I just I took this over because Jean just left town abruptly.
Sure.
Back in 2019, went back to New York. She was having some kind of like
Did she get
dispute.
spooked by something?
One of her exes, and she just left town abruptly and basically left the business behind.
Right.
I was an admin on her Facebook page, and then I just wonder what the heck to do. People were calling her number, and she wasn't answering. They were contacting her on her Facebook page. She wasn't answering, so I called up Justin Kearns over at the tourism.
Sure, yeah, we're familiar.
And said, "What do I do?" He said, "Well, first, what's going on?" I told him, "Christ, I wonder what's been going on with that." "Well, here's what you do. Are you an admin on the page?" "Yeah." "Well, you put an announcement on there that you're closing this page down and you're starting your own tour, and then create your own page, and just tell everybody." And I racked my brains for a few days.
Just migrated them over.
And just told everybody, okay, this is not in about 4 days. This is going to disappear. Come to the Apparition Trail.
So you started Apparition Trail.
Apparition Trail is what I decided to call it.
Is that
because of the
people-
Appalachian Trail?
Of course, great, dude. It's a great name.
Pardon?
Have you seen anything, or has there been any?
I have not. That is the closest I've come, taking that picture. And I wasn't even, and like I said, I didn't realize it was happening until after. That didn't turn up on my camera until like 20 minutes after I took the picture. That's the weird part.
Right.
Because when I first took the picture, all I could see was like that fuzzy area in the midair, and I was going to dismiss it as a glitch. Because one thing you do not want to do in this is, oh my God, it's a ghost. No, you gotta check it out.
Sure.
Because I've been accused, like that one, I've been accused of faking that thing so many times. I just got tired of it. That's the reason I sent it to the Canon Corporation, and they couldn't figure it out. So.
Well, it makes sense. You're like, whenever you speak about ghosts or spirits, I mean, you're hitting really to the core of like somebody's ethical and central worldview, whether they're going to be, spiritual people, faith people, agnostic or atheist, whatever the case may be, or they're just driven by science purely, whatever. Mm-hmm. So it really speaks to people's condition and how they even perceive themselves.
So a lot of religious people get really offended by the idea of ghosts. Really diehard religious people are just offended they don't even want to talk about ghosts. They think they don't exist. They think, once you die, you either go to heaven or hell. You don't hang around.
Did you get in touch with the ghost hunters that came down here?
I tried to talk to those guys. They just blew me off like you wouldn't believe. Because I was going to ask them about...
Those guys are ghost hunters, man. Like, you are a storyteller. Those dudes are hunting, man. They can't...
Well, what was going on? I found out a little later...
Joke.
I thought a little later on is they just... When they go to a place, the only people they really want to talk to are the people who own the property.
Well, sure. They got they got a production value that they have to respond to. Mm-hmm. It's reality TV. The cheaper, the better, man.
Yeah. Have you been over to? Well, everybody still calls it Joe's Steakhouse. Yeah, I call it the Edgar Williams Building, because that was the guy who owned it.
Is that what they came to research?
They came to research that place. The guy that renovated it, he spent like 3 years renovating that building, and he invited them. And actually, they were also out at the Valerie Hill Winery too, down Middle Road. The wine bar.
Yes.
Yeah, those guys.
Okay.
They investigated that place. Those dudes apparently they didn't believe in ghosts at all until they bought an old house that was built like in the early 1800s and started renovating it, and they started up a hornet's nest. Now they believe in them because, and they do well. They from what I understand, they sold the winery. But we went on one of their tours out there one time, and I didn't see anything, and I took lots of pictures, and nothing came up. But apparently, Tyler was telling me that I remember I was watching him while he was talking to us, and he was like sweating, and it was chilly in there. And afterwards, I asked him, "What was going on with that?" He says, "Well, while I was telling you guys about ghosts, one of them was talking to me. He said one of them was speaking into his left ear." And I believe these guys because, like I said, they were complete skeptics until they started working on that house. Scariest thing they told us about was one night they were like crashing on their couch. It was like the wee hours in the morning after working on it all day, and suddenly 2 7-foot black figures stepped out of a hallway into the room they were in, and then just like went over to where the couches where each of them was sleeping and leaned over them. They couldn't see no faces or anything, just black figures that you could see in the dark, which is to me sounds really scary as hell. And just leaned over and just like they were looking at them. And Tyler said, "Well, I was trying to control my bladder," and the other dude was like clicking his heels, saying, "There's no place like home." Yeah, but they stood there looking at him for like 5 minutes, and they straightened up and went away. And they've seen like people walking in front of windows and stuff on the outside. See, I'm a watch the world burn guy. So I think if I was put in that position, I'd be like, "Yo, what are you guys up to? What's going on?" Yeah, I just want to know a little bit before I get hurt. All right, we cool? All right, good. Yeah, tell me what you're.
Yeah,
but as far as that, the deal, like I say, everybody still calls it Joe's Steakhouse. I remember it as Colonial Arts and Crafts back in 2000.
Shout out Joe Wobie.
Who? What? Where?
Joe Wobie used to own the place. Nice guy. Like the family.
Really? Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it was Joe's Steakhouse, they used to let, when I was working for Gene, they used to let us come in to the steakhouse. And the employees there always they have seen this guy. That's Colonel George S. Patton the First, grandfather of the dude from World War II.
The dude from World War II. Did you say the dude World War II?
Yes, I did. Dude.
Nice. That's what I would have said. I was glad you said it before I did. Like, yo, like the dude from World War II.
But that's his grandfather. If you stand in front of the building and look up, there's a window on the second floor all the way to the left. He's seen looking out that window. And when we would talk to the employees, they would see him all the time from outside the building, or they would go up there and he's standing there looking out the window. Just what I call a full body apparition, like it's a real person standing there.
So we could say that he's probably the most namesake ghost we have in town.
Pretty much.
All right, cool.
What's his position again? Lieutenant?
General.
He was a colonel.
Colonel
Patton.
Yeah, he was only 31. It was like what happened was it was a third Winchester. I've read different accounts.
The third Winchester. What you mean?
The third Battle of Winchester.
Okay.
And the one that basically ended the reign of the Confederate Army in the Shenandoah Valley. I've heard a couple of different accounts of what happened to him. One account I read that I use in my tours is that he caught a shell fragment on his leg. It was bleeding so badly they had to take him up. They brought him to that house because every house in Winchester was a hospital. Just by the luck of the draw, that's where they took him, and he died 3 days later because they refused to let him amputate his leg. Then I also read that he was like shot by a sniper during the street fighting in Winchester.
Did they battle down here in this Old Town Street?
Oh,
There's a cannonball stuck in the side of Milano's.
That's actually from Washington's era.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't stuck in there. It just went through the house. They put a cannonball. It was like a tourist thing.
Sure.
Man,
Truth fact.
Wow.
Facts.
I
worked.
feel sheepish.
I used to work. I worked there when it was the Cannonball Pub. It's like in 1996.
That's a cool name.
Yeah. This is what old Loudon Street looked like at the end of the third battle.
Jeez, what's this building there? Is that McAdoo's?
That's a Taylor. Yeah, McAdoo's, a Taylor Hotel.
So everybody tells
Down
me that
there
McAdoo's was a hospital.
At the very end
and
is
this and
us,
that.
dog.
It is. It was a hospital.
So why are they attacking the hospital?
They weren't. They were trying to get away. What happened was, see, I talk about that on the tours. Basically, what was going on was, Lincoln. Like I said, Lincoln wanted a victory, and he wanted one badly. So he created Grant created the Army of the Shenandoah, and he put Phil Sheridan in charge of it. Little Phil, as he was nicknamed, because he's only stood 5'6", and
Shout out Lil Phil.
Lincoln privately called him a chimpanzee because his hands hung down almost to his knees. But he was a badass.
Lincoln would have got canceled.
What
nowadays.
if he was a chimpanzee? And
Shit.
He was a badass. He was Grant's
dun, dun, dun.
he was Grant's go-to guy when he wanted something done quick and dirty. He let Sheridan do it. He basically gave Sheridan like over 20,000 men and said, "Go get this guy early." And they launched an all-out assault on the city in September 19th, 1864. They marched down what's now Route 7, and of course they got caught in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. Are you familiar with Berryville Canyon?
Oh no, not
You ever notice if you're driving east on 7,
right?
You're down here, but if you're coming west, you're like 30 feet up above the eastbound lane.
Yes.
It's like they call it Berryville Canyon back then, and he marched an army of like almost 20,000 men into that and got bogged down. So when they finally were able to get through it and line up along Opequon Creek, the Confederates were already lined up really well on the dry side of it. Yeah. And the Yankees had to fight their way across Have you ever been to the third Winchester battlefield?
No.
It's a mess.
Is that a good haunted site?
I don't know. It probably would be.
Is that the one like on Millbrook?
It's Brother Martin's on Route 7.
Yeah.
It's over there.
Yeah.
That's how close the fighting was. And it was a ferocious battle because Early had 13,000 men. He had 20,000. Sheridan's men were better armed because they were using Spencer carbines and the new Henry repeaters. The AR-15 of its day.
Sure.
But
the Golden Boy.
But Early had the cream of the Confederate Army because Lee had given him the remnants of the Stonewall Brigade, Stonewall Jackson's old brigade, who were some of the best soldiers in the Confederate Army. But as anybody who's actually fought in a war will tell you, was that Napoleon said, "God's on the side of whoever has the most artillery."
Right. The thing that spending time near Lexington, Virginia, in those mountains, and then spending time in Gore and around these mountains. Was it not thought of to just take that massive amount of humans and spread them into cover and create guerrilla warfare?
I don't know.
Jesus.
Nobody
even considered, like, let's do this.
And nobody thought that we'd be, the best way to get ghosts also is guerrilla warfare.
What?
Yeah, guerrilla warfare, man.
Up close and personal. But
Yeah,
it just seems like from
people.
Again, I'm sure there's some war expert out there that could explain this better, but the density of the forest here, the elevation changes, it just seems like it would be a good place
that
to
was Third Winchester. Third Winchester
people.
was basically being fought in like a marshy, foresty area, and it was hard on the Yankees.
Yeah.
They had a heck of a time with it, but eventually they did get through all that muck, and they started pushing. They pushed Early's army to the east and to the south. Torbert's cavalry was chasing to the south, and this happened like around 5 o'clock that afternoon. Basically, they were backed up like less than a half a mile, because remember it was like a lot of open space north of here,
Right.
and there was plenty of room for what happened. Sheridan's men had basically had pinned up against where the East Avenue. That's about how close the Sheridan was. Torbert's cavalry was less than a half a mile north of here, and apparently he just decided let's get this over with. Let's release the Kraken. So he took his 8,000 cavalrymen, spread them out in 3 lines a half a mile wide. They drew sabers and they charged down the doggone hill. And the Confederate army just broke and ran. That's what you're seeing here. It wasn't a retreat. It was just a rout. It was just they didn't care. All they wanted to do was get the hell out of there.
Right.
And if you look at those puffs of smoke, they were lobbing shrapnel rounds on them.
So you think that level of brutality may lead to a lot of ghosts
Hell
in this
yes.
area? All right.
How many people died in this area?
I don't really know any exact figures.
Enough
I know
to
that.
choke a donkey.
See, where Winchester was basically a big military hospital, they were bringing wounded here from everywhere. After Gettysburg, when Lee came through Winchester on his running from Gettysburg, they sent 5,000 wounded men from Gettysburg to Winchester for treatment, which was about twice the living population of the town at the time. And
So do people challenge you when they go on your tours? Are there that type of people?
yeah, sometimes, but I'll be the first to admit if somebody knows something that I don't know, I'll let them talk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half the fun of this. Sometimes there's some folks who actually have something interesting to say. And like I said, when we go into some of the places like yours and V2 and Joe's, if the employees want to talk, I let them, because they've actually experienced this stuff.
Well, sure, yeah.
When I go to the George Washington, there's this lady named Linda who had worked there for a long time. I just let her take over because she knows all the stories of that place.
Right.
And when she experiences something, she writes it, she logs it.
Is Jennifer working tonight?
I'm not sure.
I think she does. If she does, I'm going to have her tell you the story of what she saw.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, dude.
So do you believe in ghosts?
I guess I have to now. I'm not exactly sure what they are, though.
Are you afraid of ghosts? Because I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
No, me neither. I've never encountered one.
Do you think it's a weird phrasing, I believe in ghosts? Wouldn't it be, I have a good hypothesis that there's a high probability
That's
that
even better, yeah.
You know what I mean? I believe in something. It's just, I think that's where it really tears at your heart. It's like, if I believe in something, I believe through faith, right? So if you believe in God, then you believe in something that you don't have
Well, you
evidence
have to.
of, right? So to believe in evidence with no evidence about an apparition, it's like, I think it's a steep transition, It's like, I think that's why it gets to people.
I like to think what they are is like not so much a person's spirit, but it's like a piece of them.
Yeah, my thought process is it's got to be some sort of journey or trial or purgatory state. But I believe that would have to be very limited. But if you can't believe in good, and you can't believe in angels, and you can't believe in God, and not believe in a polar opposite enemy and antagonist to that, which also has some realm here. So there's some, I don't know. There's some probability, some sort of interaction between these different humans and non-humans.
Well, like I said,
that's what I think. I don't believe in jack shit.
If ghosts don't exist, then tell me what the hell I took a picture of.
I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying. I'd want to use every element of the scientific method to try to figure that shit out.
For all I know, that could be.
You might have to just chalk it up to unsolved.
For all I know, that could be an interdimensional thing.
Unsolved
For all
mysteries.
I know,
an interdimensional thing. That is also probable to some level. And if you think about West Virginia, all these crazy, what is the bridge guy? What is the bridge thing that was Mothman? You got the Mothman. You got all this. It's like I start thinking like,
you got the Bunny Man,
Appalachian history and tradition here, isolation. There's not a whole lot of city light. There's some more imagination. Then there could be energy, because there's energy in the ground from coal, from gas, from and then you talk about energy.
I think it's something to think.
There's
about.
a lot going on there.
We can only perceive but a small percent of the actual reality. Our perception of reality is only a small sliver of what's actually going on. So it may be possible. It also may not be possible. But who should never know, really?
So one thing I tell people when they ask me, well, what is a ghost supposed to be? Because we talk about orbs. You're probably familiar with orbs.
An orb being a round sphere like
Mhm.
something or
Round,
other.
it's usually iridescent blue. I actually we had my wife and I in our last house in Leesburg. I have a friend who is he's a very perceptive individual, and one night he stayed over at our house, 4:00 in the morning, ran out of the house. We had issues because of the woman who had lived in the house before, had lived there since it was built. She had done all the decorating. My wife and I came in and did a substantial amount of redecorating. There was a lot of bumps in the night. Real talk, dude. We can talk about it later. But
what did you say he was?
a lot of bumps in the night. So I have a
No.
friend.
What did you say in the first sentence about describing this guy's a very what?
Perceptive individual. And so
Is that like a synonym for full of shit?
No, I mean like
He's open to it.
I think he's a dude who sees things.
I'm sorry, I don't know this dude. This dude's probably great. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, but some people see things that other people don't, right?
Yeah.
And so 4:00 in the morning, he runs out. I called him the next morning. I was like, yo, man, you okay? Everything cool? He's like, look, dude, I just got to let you know, I saw 2 blue orbs in your house. And I said, all right, cool. And that's a real story.
Mm-hmm.
We had gone through, and you can talk to Kelly about this. And ask Kelly about it.
I'm not asking Kelly about blue orbs, bro. Like,
don't be scared of the blue orbs.
I'm not scared of blue orbs. It's just
don't fear.
It's hard for me to have a conversation with people about blue orbs that were made by
guess what? It's hard.
a great movie director.
I don't bring orbs much up much anymore.
What were we talking about in the first place? Where did you see orbs?
Apparitions,
Okay.
orbs.
We've gotten photographs of them before.
Of orbs.
One time, it was really weird. We were out at Mount Hebron Cemetery until I got tired of walking all the way down there.
Is that the cemetery up on top of the hill
Yeah,
there? That's gated?
with a castle.
It's a nice cemetery.
And I was there with a group, and Jean came up and joined us. And I just for the heck of it, I took a picture of her. And when I looked at the picture, she had an orb completely around her, which is really, really effing strange. I tell people when they ask me about orbs, I say, well, you have to remember we're essentially batteries.
Yeah, we are.
I swear, you see the Matrix? We're batteries. We're electric. What makes us is electrical energy, and energy can be destroyed. So when we die, it simply reverts to another form. And the most common form energy takes is a sphere, i.e., the sun.
That was a very factual statement that you just made.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
I'm buying what that is. That hypothesis.
That's because people are always asking me this stuff, and I have to be able to try to give them a rational explanation as best as I can. And the thing is, lately, the last couple of years, I've been discounting orb pictures because I'm sure they were probably just spotted lanternflies,
right,
or bugs.
I trust rhetoric before I trust the photograph. Straight up.
Even the ghost hunters, they just dismiss orbs as basically dust or bugs. They don't even bring them. They don't even talk about them.
So, Apparition Trail, is that? Do you have a website for people to sign up for?
I did.
No longer.
See, I'm not officially doing the tours anymore. I just decided to do them because I'm here in town for a week.
Okay.
And who knows, this may be an annual thing with me. I've been really trying to find somebody else to take them over from me.
Right.
I had a guy he said he was really interested. He was going to join me on the tours this week. I wrote up my script for him, and he never turned up.
Christopher.
Holler at your boy,
Does
man.
Monument Entertainment need to sponsor?
Yeah, I'll do it. Hey, if I can wear that, can I wear your top hat?
You have to get your own.
Yeah, man, you can't wear another man's hat, man. It's mad disrespectful,
$24 at Spirit Halloween.
Oh, all right.
It's a great hat. I've got a real one that my wife bought me in New Orleans. The thing cost $100.
I got a big old dome, bro, so I got a special order hat to fit this thing.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
He does, man.
Hey, so I crack Corey up sometimes. He's having a...
You call him coriander?
He's losing
Corey.
it.
Yeah,
he's called coriander.
Anyway,
no, Corey,
not coriander. I want to see that later, but I think he called you coriander, which is my cat's name.
See, now if you Google haunted places in Winchester, the first place that comes up is Cork Street Tavern.
That place,
that place is haunted by terrible service. Psych.
Hey, easy.
I know I should have said what I did.
But that night we took the photographer for the Star out there, the one who said my picture was real. He took a picture of the front one of their windows, and got an image of a guy, of a silhouette of a man wearing like a Civil War era slouch hat. it shouldn't have been there.
I mean, I could imagine. I mean, when I think about the spiritualism of it all, to be a person in war and not everyone in war is just reacting, to orders or whatever. There's probably a lot of individuals that were in that group that were just totally psycho murderers and were really full of hatred, and they might be stuck.
A lot of them were like 18, 19-year-old guys who weren't expecting to die that young either.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they would.
They don't know. They really haven't accepted the idea that they're dead.
Oh, and then our version of time is pretty.
And one of the things that have you been up the National Cemetery up there at the end of Piccadilly Street?
I don't frequent cemeteries for some sort of tourist activity.
No, sir. That's it's like right down the street from where I used to live. Well, I'd love to go into Mount Hebron at night, but they lock the place up at night. No, you can jump the stone wall and walk around National Cemetery, but it's not as interesting as Mount Hebron. It's a great cemetery.
Is your alarm going off because your tour's coming up?
Nah, my shit is going on.
Jesus Christ, Chris.
I
muted
turned
it.
off my phone, man.
Anyway.
The most creepiest ringtone of all time.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I'm like, I picture like a merry-go-round outside the door, like chilling.
It was actually.
Well, it's Scotchtown down near Ashland where I live now, like 5 miles outside of town. There was an incident where somebody was hearing just like a piano playing.
Right.
And there was nobody up there, and then they walked up there, and there was a rat walking back and forth across the keyboard.
I used to work security at the Homestead Resort. It was built in 1766.
Mm-hmm. Where is this?
In Hot Springs, Virginia.
Okay.
And I would play the piano. There was like 7 grand pianos in that place.
Holy crap.
And there was a couple spots over where they would have big banquets, like large weddings and so on, a huge conference room. And there was nobody staying sometimes. I would know if there were people staying, but if there weren't anybody staying in that wing, no one else could hear me, But there were a couple of maintenance guys and shit. And when I'd be playing that thing and I'd be moving so quick after I played for a few minutes, but at that time they tracked down to see where it was. Everybody was talking for the next couple of weeks about this ghost is playing these beautiful weird songs or whatever. And I was I would just vibe there, and I would do it like not every week, but every couple of weeks. And it would really mess with them for a long time, dude. So that started folklore. That started a whole big scene. Like I remember being in the employee chill area, and everybody was talking about, oh my god, you hear the piano ghost? And I was just be like laughing to myself, like, shit, it's just a scared dude that's just bored.
I have to admit, when I was working for Gene a couple of times, I decided to gaff it a little bit because we were in it's over some Boscawen Street, right a few doors down from the kitchen. And it's like you walk in, it's like a cul-de-sac. You can walk back in there. There's like buildings, but there's no exit to it. And we were back in there. People were running around with the EMF detector. So I just took a rock and threw it up on the roof and bang. What was that?
Oh, yeah. Create a situation. That's like just being like 7th graders running around the woods thinking that there's a cougar or something out there.
Yeah. Well, I was telling him about this series of books. I own a bunch of them. There's this guy that used to live in Williamsburg called L.B. Taylor. He's written a whole series of books about the ghost of Virginia.
Okay.
He's like 12 volumes of them.
And Winchester, is it on the list?
Yeah, some.
Okay.
But he just didn't write about ghosts. He wrote about like strange creatures and things, and a cannibal down by the West Virginia border and like southwestern Virginia who was like murdering people and eating them. And
I can imagine that to be true.
What they think is the ghost of Erwin Rommel at the Highland Inn, and it's near Roanoke.
Highland, Virginia, Salem.
It's like southwest, and I don't remember exactly where it is. You know who Rommel was, right?
No.
The German general, the Desert Fox.
No, I have no idea who the Desert Fox is. Do you? All right, let's hear.
He was one of the generals. He was in the Valkyrie, the Valkyrie plot to try to kill Hitler.
Right. Okay.
Because a lot of his generals were saying this guy's fucking everything. We got to get rid of him, and it turns out it failed. And I think he committed suicide. But he was one of the best generals he had. And he actually came to America. He came to the Shenandoah Valley in like the early 30s to study Lee and Jackson. And he stayed at this really nice inn, had wonderful conversations with the locals. Apparently, he's extremely well-read and polite man, and he smoked a distinctive pipe tobacco that had a distinct aroma to it. that they can still smell. And occasionally they hear like someone speaking in German at this hotel.
So the Nazis sent someone over here
He wasn't
study?
he wasn't a Nazi. There wasn't a Nazi party then. This is like very early 30s. He was simply a colonel in the German Wehrmacht.
That would beget the Nazis. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I honestly don't think he ever joined the party, to be perfectly honest. He was simply, got to remember there was two kinds of people in that war, the soldiers and the Nazis. Many of the soldiers were Nazis, but not everybody was.
Right.
But
Okay.
we're getting off topic here. I'm
All right,
sorry.
cool. Well, JP, thanks for coming. I know you got a tour to do tonight, so
What time is it?
we've already extended past your curfew
6:55.
with curfew.
You're kidding.
Yeah, we got to
Oh my
roll.
God. Yeah, I've got 5 minutes.
So 5 minutes to get
Fortunately,
to the next
I just have to get over to the library.
tour. Awesome.
That's it, dude.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank
Let's
you,
wrap it
guys.
up. Good job, curfew.
Curfew?
It's not just the new venue in town. It's a monument to live entertainment.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
The Monument, the new premier concert and event venue in Winchester. 2 stories, state-of-the-art sound, delicious food and drink, and the best in live events. The Monument, on the corner of Loudon and Piccadilly in Winchester, and right at the cutting edge of live entertainment. Go to themonumentva.com. That's themonumentva.com for events, tickets, special offers, and more. The Monument. We'll see you at the next show.